Okay, hello and welcome to this month's free workshop. The topic of this one is somatically supported decision making. So I do a free workshop each month. Um, with a different topic. So the topic varies per month. Next month, it will be understanding anger. It is always free. If you'd like to attend live, you can register for the Zoom. Otherwise, you can catch the recording on my YouTube and my podcast, which is the Your Own Medicine podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Usually, this is attended by people that enrich the experience by providing their own input and experiences as we move through. Unfortunately, some buffoon did not press record on the workshop for this month. So, and that buffoon was me, myself, and I. So, I'm redoing it. So, here we are, you and me. Hello. Um, we are going to basically move through this as though it was the workshop because built into the workshop, even though there aren't people attending this live, there's a lot of somatic experiencing that happens in the form of getting curious about what you're experiencing in your body. So, as I cue you to get curious about what's happening in your body, you can take notes, you can just notice. If you are driving or walking or whatever, you can just get curious about what is coming up for you. Okay. So, let's take a moment and ground. So start to pull, if you are watching this on YouTube, start to pull your awareness away from the screen. And if you are listening to the audio recording, just keep steady on my voice while you start to orient around your space. And take a moment and just notice where in space is your body. Maybe looking in the room around you, looking over your right shoulder. And just noticing how the environment you're in lands in your nervous system. Coming back through to center, looking over your left shoulder. You hear tippy taps. I'm not sure if the microphone is picking that up, but that's my dog Daisy. And coming back through to center and just really noticing and getting curious about how your body is landing right now in this moment. Giving it the space to transition, to arrive. And then starting to get curious about your relationship to gravity, especially if you are seated. Noticing how your body is being held or supported by the chair, under or behind you. And then when you're ready, start to bring your awareness back towards the screen. All right, and we're going to get into the content of this month's workshop. So, this month's workshop, the January workshop, was about somatically supported decision making. So, during this workshop, we will cover how and why recovering people pleasers so often export their decision making process to others, understand how a yes, no, and maybe feel in your body, understand how traumatic overcouplings may feel versus true gut feelings, and also learn how to be confident in your own decisions by aligning your sensations with your actions, which I believe to be a form of integrity. Okay, it's definitely coherence. Okay, so this may be a review for you, and if it is, that's okay. But we're going to cover the fawn response. So we have 4 trauma responses, or survival resources, as they're called at times. We have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fight and flight are both mobilizing responses. So in fight, we often have a rush of energy that goes up and out. Um, with fight, often it's a downward surge of energy towards our legs. But either way, it's a explosion of energy that is mobilizing. So it's meant to move you, right? With freeze, there's different kinds of freeze. So depending, there's a lot of what is it called? There's a lot of debate over this in the somatic psychology world, but we're gonna just kind of talk about basic freeze. So in freeze, if you imagine that there's this like this mobilizing response that wants to come out, freeze tells you, hey, I know you want to punch this person in the face right now, but the safest thing to do is to disappear, is to become small, become quiet, become invisible. And so it's often a dampening response that's we might feel constriction. All of that energy that was going out now might go inwards. We might feel a numbness. They call this the savior response because we might be experiencing something really scary or traumatic. We might dissociate from it. We might go numb. It's a really incredible, intelligent response. And then we have fawn. So the fawn response is very interesting because we, like, let's say we have a threat or something that causes the system to recruit those survival resources. Instead of going towards the very thing that's causing stress to our system in a fight response, we go towards that thing or that person. Instead of fighting, we go in appeasement. So it has this social element that's really interesting and really different from the first three. So it's basically the system saying, well, in order to keep myself safe here, I'm going to go towards this person. I'm going to get them on my side. I'm going to appease them. I'm going to show them I'm nice. I'm going to de-escalate things. And even as I say this, just notice what happens in your system. Okay. So it's this appeasement response. And oftentimes, when we are children don't have the full menu of survival responses. Fight and flight are not really options for children because your body knows that you are not going to be successful. Sorry, my Wi-Fi. Your body knows that you are not going to be successful in having a fight response with an adult. It's very unlikely. You probably are not going to flee and run away with a high success rate. And so often, what that leaves children is fawn and freeze. And so, those of us who experienced fawn and freeze frequently, we have become very good at it by the time we're adults. And so, usually, that muscle is very toned. Yeah. Okay. So, just notice how that lands in your body, that information. And then we're going to move forward into this topic of enmeshment. So, what happens when we fawn is that there's a lack of boundaries. So, fawn is a kind of a hybrid response because oftentimes there's some kind of desire of the body to create a boundary. So for example, like there's stress happening, right? I'm in a stressful situation. I want to create space, maybe put my hand out, maybe I want to tell you shut up, maybe I want to leave. But instead there's a this dampening that happens with the freeze response. The freeze response comes in, helps numb us a little bit so that I can stay in the situation. And then we have the appease, the performative nature of fawn response that comes forward. So it's kind of a hybrid response. So what happens when we appease, or if we have grown up in a home where there is enmeshment, which it's possible there was, or if you experience enmeshment in any other context. So enmeshment happens when there's a lack of boundaries. So for example, if here's some examples of enmeshment. Like for example, if a parent is not getting their emotional needs met by their partner, and then they might turn to their children to get their emotional needs met. Even though it's kind of breaking the boundaries of the child, even if the child is not able to assert those boundaries. And so, what happens when we experience a lot of enmeshment or a lack of boundaries is we start to become very disconnected to our inner worlds because we are constantly experiencing this this freeze response, this dampening, this disconnecting of our needs. I might not even feel what my body wants to do because I am experiencing this freeze, this numbing. And so it gets numbed out. Our desires get numbed out. Our impulses get numbed out. And so instead of when we go to make any kind of decision, when we go to make a decision and we look inwards for that compass, instead of finding a compass or a direction or a desire or an impulse, instead I kind of feel confused. I might feel nothing. I might feel frozen. And so we, instead of looking inwards, we start to look outwards for direction or guidance because I'm starting to feel disconnected to my inner world. So instead of, like, let's say, feeling like, okay, I'm going to make this decision, I feel really clear and confident. Instead, I might feel, oh, I don't really know what I want. I don't really know what I need. I don't even know what my body wants to do. I'm just gonna ask 10 people and take a poll and go with the popular option. And that's what I used to do. I'm using that as an example because that's what I used to do. I actually used to not even trust my inner world to the point where if I was sick, I would call people and be like, these are my symptoms. Am I sick? I couldn't even trust my like myself to diagnose myself as being too sick to go to work. So go ahead and take a moment, just notice how that lands for you. And then we are going to move forward into how a yes, no, and maybe feel in your body. If you have the chance right now to grab a pen and paper, I do suggest to do that. It's really helpful to take some notes right now. This freaking Wi-Fi. Okay. Mamma mia. All right. The body is always experiencing the world. So we call it somatic experiencing. That's why we call it somatic experiencing. It's this idea that your body is always experiencing the world and feeling a certain way, responding, and so on. So it's like, how is my body responding to this? It might be different than something I think cognitively. So for example, I like have a really good friend named Cheryl. Not actually, but for the sake of an example. Cheryl and I have been friends for ages, and I go to her house, and when I leave, I feel kind of sick after. I feel a little nauseous. I feel exhausted. My head hurts. But cognitively, I'm like, I've been friends with Cheryl forever. Cheryl's great. I love hanging out with Cheryl. Then why is my body having this different experience? And so we start to get curious about the somatic experience of our body. And that's what we're going to do now, is start to get really curious about how does my body experience a yes, experience a no, and experience a maybe. Okay. So, number one is yes. Yes. Full body, fuck yes. Full body, hell yeah. So, as you think of a yes, full body yes, what happens in and around your body? What happens to your chest, your belly, your breath, your arms? Is there gestures that want to happen? Is there any expressions on the face? Is there words that want to come through? Are you leaning forward, back? Is there images coming up? Just notice. If you are taking notes, write down some notes. I experience a full body yes as my arms are coming out wide. I feel this upwards, exciting energy. I lean forward, my face lights up, my chest feels open, my belly feels relaxed. And I feel this like just leaning forward. So notice how it feels for you. And then we're going to move into a no. How does a no feel in your body? Putting the yes on the shelf. And then we have no. And we're doing full body fuck no. What does a fuck no feel like? Is there gestures that come forward? What happens in the chest, the belly, the legs, the arms? Is there expressions on the face? Are you leaning forward, back? Is there images or words that come forward? Taking notes. I often feel a full body no as my hands coming forward, like, whoa, stop. I feel leaning back. I feel a shaking of my head and a raising of my eyebrows, like, whoa, Nelly. Hell no, my eyes get big. So just noticing how the no feels. And one thing I'm going to bring in right now too is that in the live workshop, a lot of people experienced overcouplings around this no. So they would feel the no, and then they also said, oh, and I also feel like I shouldn't say no, or I'm feeling really guilty, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling constriction in my chest. And so if you're noticing some kind of unpleasant experience as you think about no, that could be some kind of overcoupling that the body has around no. So, right, going back to this idea of enmeshment, perhaps you grew up in a home where you were not really encouraged to have boundaries, to say no. Maybe it wasn't safe to say no. You didn't want to ruffle feathers, create problems, rock the boat. So I wasn't really allowed to say no. And so if you feel that overcoupling, just notice it. And then we're going to put it on the shelf right next to the yes. Okay, now we're going to move into maybe, which we are calling here, I'm not sure, I need more time. I'm not sure yet, I need more time. When you think of this, I'm not sure yet, I need more time. What do you notice? Notice your belly, your chest, arms, legs. Are you leaning forward, back? How's the breath? How's the face, expressions? Any images or words that come forward? Great. So I experienced this one. This is my favorite one. I experience this as my hands coming forward, not in a pushing away like the no, but almost like a holding, like pausing time. I notice I often look up because when I reflect and inquire, I look up. It feels like a suspension for me. I'm not leaning forward or back. And it feels very spacious to me. Time to decide. So noticing how that feels for you as well. Taking notes. And then we're going to put the I'm not sure, I need more time on the shelf as well. So what we just did was break down a full body yes, full body no, and a maybe, which we call I'm not sure yet, I need more time. So you can also, on your own time, break down the difference for you between a full body yes, a hesitant yes, or like a yeah, sure, right? Because those are super different experiences. If I'm like, get an offer, a job offer, then I'm like, fuck yeah, hell yeah. That's gonna feel really different than someone saying, like, hey, do you mind cleaning the toilet? Sure. It's gonna feel really different. A hesitant yes, a yeah, sure, feels different. And what's the difference for you between a hard no and a soft no? And you can do this on your own time just by imagining what does a soft no feel like for me? On always just being curious. So then you can kind of map these responses from your body and they might feel different. So, for example, I'm not going to go too far into this. I just did a whole module on this for my holiday course, where if you have like a full body yes happening, but then there's like a no in there somewhere, you can start to break down the elements. Well, how do I feel about the people? Yes. What about the location? Yes. The time limit. Oh, it's supposed to be a 10-hour thing. Oh, my body's like not feeling, does not feel like a yes. Well, what if I went there for 3 hours? Sure. So you can start to kind of get creative with this and break things down and tangle things apart. Okay, moving forward, we're going to briefly explain the difference between traumatic overcouplings versus true gut feelings. So, I briefly mentioned an overcoupling earlier. So, an overcoupling is from somatic psychology, I believe, particularly somatic experiencing. It's this idea that something that is perhaps neutral has an additional meaning that is given to it from the body. So there's positive, negative, and traumatic overcouplings. So, for example, I have this mug. If my grandma gave me this mug and she told me a sweet story about this mug when she gave it to me, I might have a positive overcoupling about this mug. It's like a really meaningful, sweet overcoupling. If someone that I really didn't like gave me this mug and they like told me something mean when they gave it to me, then I might have a negative overcoupling around this mug. And then we have traumatic overcouplings, which is when we experience some kind of something that is a traumatic. It could be around anger, it could be literally it could be around anything. That's a fun thing with overcouplings is like it can be on a mug or on an experience around saying no, right? Oh, saying no is not safe. That's an overcoupling. And so, how do I know the difference? Because we're talking about getting really curious about our body, right? So what if I am get a job offer in a state that I had a very traumatic experience in? Oh, my body's reacting. It's a full body no. Ah, alarm bells. How do I know the difference between, okay, this is a triggered response, this is an overcoupling, versus a true gut feeling? So that's what we're going to talk about. When we have traumatic overcouplings around something, they can often express as triggers in our body. So that might elicit a physical reaction, sweaty palms, increased heartbeat, dissociation, lack of connection to self and others, flashbacks, urgency, the impulse to self-soothe. by going on your phone, binge eating, fawning, or securing attachment. So, a sympathetic response, right? Whew! Or maybe parasympathetic if you go into freeze. All right. So, once again, getting curious about your experience as we talk about this. When you think of a traumatic overcoupling or a triggered response, what do you notice in your body? Even now, as I'm saying this, how does it express? Where in your body do you feel it? I just felt it in my heart. Ooh, like a squeezing of my heart. I know for myself, like I said, I feel as squeezing my heart. I feel myself starting to dissociate. And there's this urgency that I feel like I need to fix this now. Shut it down now. So notice how you are experiencing this. So it might, for you, feel urgent, quick, like it goes from 0 to 10, oof, and really loud. For me, it feels like that alarm bell ringing, and I feel the urgency. And it usually feels hot and quick, like a rush up. So notice how that feels in your body. Great. Now we put it on the shelf. Click. And then we're going to think about when you have an inner knowing. So this is very different from a triggered response, right? We're talking gut feeling. I know something in my core to be true, to be good for me, to be bad for me, to be for me, not for me. Inner wisdom. And as I say those words, what do you notice around your body? How does this emerge? And where are you? What places are you? And what activities do you do when these often emerge? What parts in or around your body do you notice them? For me, these feel a lot quieter. They're very organic, like an unfolding, like a flower blooming. And I usually feel them in my core, like the core, like right in front of my spine. And it feels like very solid, like a rock. I usually experience these after a yoga class, when I'm meditating, just waking up, when I'm relaxed. Okay, so notice what comes up for you here. Okay, finally, we're going to talk about this idea of congruence. So, learning how to be confident in your own decisions by aligning your sensations with your actions. So, how can we use this information to find more congruence between our inner worlds and our outer worlds? So, the first step is really just by acknowledging the sensations, the gestures, the expressions, just noticing them and getting curious about them, right? So, I might not go into changing my entire life. That actually sounds horrible and like a terrible. That actually sounds like, whoa, that would be way outside my window of tolerance. But just by getting really curious, starting to reflect on what is happening in my body. Usually because of that freeze response when we are with people or when we are in the situation, I might not have access to my inner world, and that's okay. What we can do is before and after check in and notice, what am I feeling right now? What am I noticing is happening in my body? Is there any gestures that want to come forward of like boundaries? Is there like disgust happening on my face? What is happening? And like I said, it might not come through in the moment, and that's totally fine. But after, as you're driving home from work, as you're driving home from meeting a friend, just noticing what's happening right now in my body. Am I feeling warm, relaxed, open? Am I feeling really clenched? And just getting curious about them, not giving them, assigning them meaning, but letting them tell you, I'm tired, I need rest, that was too much talking, I need, a bath, I need to go to sleep. And then this information that we get from the body, how can I translate this gesture or boundary into the appropriate social context? So, for example, if I am noticing, if I just got like, let's say I was just talking to someone, I just went to lunch and I'm eating, and this person's talking at me the whole time and they're like trauma dumping, and then I look, and maybe, when you drive home and then you sit in the driveway for 10 minutes, I'm in the driveway, I'm thinking back, and I feel this gesture of my hand wanting to come up and tell them, please shut up. Please shut up. That is so good to know and notice. Oh, my body wants this. Oh, there's relief even as I say this, like, oh, thank you for acknowledging. Just like, please shut up. Am I going to tell my friend next time I see them, please shut up? Probably not. What if you are talking to your boss and you notice this boundary wants to come forward? You're doing this once again alone after. You feel this boundary of like, this is too much work. I'm not coming in on Saturday, fuck you. The body wants that, right? It's so important to even just acknowledge, oh, this is what my body wants. The body, oh, the nervous system loves being seen. So just doing that is like, delicious. How can I then translate that to the appropriate social context? So, okay, I've learned this thing about my body. My body doesn't like being talked at when I'm trying to eat lunch. It doesn't like the trauma dumping. So, how can I tell my friend, I really want to hear you, but I also really want to enjoy my salad. Can we pause this story and then talk about it after? With my boss, maybe I say, Steve, I'm actually not able to work on Saturday, or whatever it is. You translate it from shut the fuck up to I'm actually not available after 5 p.m. But we're still holding the boundary. And even as I'm saying this, you can see it if you're watching the video. If you're not on the podcast, I'm still doing the gesture with my hands. So I'm still maintaining and honoring the gesture that the body wants or the boundary, but I'm translating it into kinder communication. Okay, so notice how this is landing for you. And then I'm going to address just one question that someone asked in the live. So someone in the live asked, well, what if you have to make you have a time sensitive decision that you have to make? And in the moment, I actually said, I'm going to think about it. So one thing that I've noticed a lot of somatic therapists do, because I've done a lot of courses where I'm in the audience with a somatic therapist, and people will ask them a question, and they'll say, let me think about that. And to me, it's this calling in of the I'm not sure yet, I need more time of like, let me think. Hold on. And so oftentimes I've found we can buy time, especially if you are a recovering people pleaser and you have this, the fawn response is so fucking wonderful and it's so reflexive. So it's like we don't even think about it. It's right there helping us out, or maybe not helping us out, but saying, yes, yes, I'll do that. Oh, no problem. Like I don't even think about it. Yes, yes, yes. And so what we can start to do is maybe create a habit of bringing in the element of time. Hey, do you want to do this thing? Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Can you watch my cat on Saturday? Let me think about it and get back to you. Oftentimes, we have the luxury to bring in the element of time, even if we're in like a live audience. Like I was in a lot in front of a, live audience for this. You often can bring in the element of time for yourself. Um, and then I would say too, on that note, if it's a true like emergency situation, there's not going to be much reflecting anyway. You're going to be in that sympathetic state and your body will be, it's going to be extremely reflexive and responsive. You're not going to probably have time to reflect and think, and that's just the body in its survival mechanism. I think this person was maybe referring more to like, let's say I have get a job offer and they're like, we need to know by Friday. So I have 3 days to decide, oh my gosh, am I gonna take this job and move across the country? So once again, you can create the element of time for yourself. In somatic experiencing, they ask this question often. They say, is what you're experiencing pleasant or unpleasant? And people will often say, oh, it's neutral. And they go, no, 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 it's not neutral. Let's sit with it a little longer and see if it's pleasant or unpleasant, if it's slightly more pleasant or slightly more unpleasant. And so sit with it longer. Bring in the element of time for yourself. Okay, I'm feeling something unpleasant. Great. Is that an overcoupling? Does it feel urgent? Does it feel like how overcouplings feel in my body? Or does it feel like that strong, quiet whisper of a gut feeling saying no? Right? So bringing in the element of time for yourself. Super badass move. Okay, so that is all for today. If you're interested in learning more about this, about boundaries and supporting your body and recovering from people pleasing through this work of somatics, getting familiar with your body, your yes, no, your body's expression and desire for boundaries, understanding your anger, understanding healthy narcissism, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, but like allowing yourself to be seen, perceived. Can you even enjoy being seen and perceived, which is something that the fawn response often tells us, no, 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 being seen and perceived is not safe. How can we start to play with that? How can we start to pretend or not pretend. How can we start to play with like being the villain or being, this role of being the villain? I have this whole segment of my work called inner villain work, um, creating the capacity or finding, connecting to the capacity in your nervous system to be disliked, to disappoint people. It's really fun work. I have all of that is in my signature program called VENOM, and it is an evergreen course you can enroll whenever you'd like, and it's really awesome. So if you have any questions, you can always email me and my team. It's support@calisomatics.com. If you are listening to this or watching this as of recording, there's currently 4 spots left for the Bali retreat before it is totally sold out. So we are going to Bali in June of this year, 2020. What year is it? 2025? We just changed years, so I'm not really sure. June of 2025. We're going to Ubud, Bali for a 7-day retreat. We're going to have workshops on nervous system regulation, boundaries, and inner villain work. So, exactly what I was just talking about, as well as somatic yoga, very gentle for all levels, and cultural excursions around Bali. This is a women's only retreat. And the people going are absolutely amazing. Like I said, I just sold the last early bird spot. So there's 4 more spots before it's completely sold out. So if you're thinking about it, I'll link it in the podcast notes and the YouTube description. And once again, if you have any questions, reach out to my team and we will get back to you. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was supportive.